End of the program, Akash Chougule with AFP. AFP has been a great partner of the Variety program. I've done some events. You've been a great sponsor, so we thought we'd bring you on for this sponsored segment. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for having me on.
So AFP, you guys do obviously everything, largest conservative grassroots organization in the country. But you've got this new initiative, Bidenomics.com, which I think is fantastic. But I think before we get into that, what I'd really love to hear from you, because you work so much on these economic issues and pushing back on the Biden administration, what was your reaction to Joe Biden's State of the Union?
My initial reaction was that this White House is completely unaware of why their approval ratings are in the tank to begin with.
Yeah.
It is beyond amazing. People are pointing to polls saying, oh, people liked his ideas. Of course you like free stuff when you have no sense of the consequences, no sense of how much it's going to cost, no sense of how realistic it is or how likely it is to pass. When in reality, if you go an inch deep into anything he proposed, it's more spending, more class warfare, and more policies that are going to drive inflation, which is why no one can stand this administration to begin with.
Yeah.
That was the first thing, is whenever he would mention these new programs he wanted, it was like we already forgot previous State of the Unions where he was like, okay, here's how we're going to spend trillions of more dollars. Inflation keeps going up. And he's like, well, let's just keep going to it. Yeah. It seems like that's been working well for working families.
Yeah. So on the costs of things, what I think is interesting is this push from the president and also Cookie Monster. I don't know if you guys saw this idea of shrinkflation, which I think originated with Elizabeth Warren. She was really trying to carry the torch on that thing a while ago. But explain, to our listeners what the Biden administration is trying to do there by sort of like reframing inflation as shrinkflation.
Yeah, well, the first thing they're trying to do is reinvigorate their progressive base, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing about policy or the truth or anything that matters to the vast majority of Americans that they're trying to do, no matter how ridiculous what they're saying is. Their number one priority is reinvigorating their progressive base going into November because the base is not excited about Joe Biden, and why would they be? What they're trying to do with shrinkflation, greedflation, all this stuff is distract from how his policies have caused inflation to begin with, right? And it's not a secret. You don't need a degree in economics to know that when you dump $6 trillion additional dollars into the economy, which is what they did under the Biden, Pelosi, Schumer regime of last Congress, an additional $6 trillion in spending, you do nothing to increase supply of goods and services. Obviously, that's going to raise prices.
Right.
They turn around like they do with everything, blame it on quote unquote evil corporations. Yeah. They point to shrinkflation, greedflation, as though one, costs didn't go up for corporations, and two, as though there was some point at which Elizabeth Warren didn't think corporations were evil and greedy. Mm-hmm. They just now became evil and greedy because inflation is really high and Joe Biden's poll numbers are in the tank.
Right.
Again, the American people are not that dumb. They see that prices are going up, and it has nothing to do with corporations. They're going up for small businesses. They're going up for families. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, the average American family is spending $11,400 more today to afford the same quality of life as they had before President Biden took office.
Yeah, it's not like they're having bad quality of life because their candy bar is smaller. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, just like this is all predicated on some kind of like conspiracy theory that one day every major corporation got together in the room. They're like, let's hike the prices, gentlemen. Yeah. This has nothing to do with inflation. We're just deciding today's the day we're going to just hike prices together at the same time.
Yeah, now's the time to really cash in. We weren't trying to make money before.
Yeah.
But now, because Joe Biden's numbers are in the toilet, we're going to decide if we need to make some more money. I mean, it's just bonkers.
It is. And like you said, $11,000 more to get nothing, to get no difference, just to be where you started is unbelievable. That burden that's being put on households across this country. I mean, and for this president to go out and act like that was some kind of like a victory speech is like, things are going well. Bidenomics is working. This was the plan all along, folks. Aren't things great? And like you said, that they think there's no reason that this is connected to why the poll numbers are bad.
Yeah.
It's a policy. It's their policy that's being judged.
It's very straightforward, and it's actually, you're paying for it in more ways than one. And this is the thing that we're trying to do at Bidenomics.com, and we've got a massive campaign that's going to run through the fall, educating voters on how policies have caused the problems they're facing. The problems go way beyond, a candy bar or even the price of gas or the price of groceries. You're actually paying for it in 2 or 3 different ways. So prices are up, obviously, on household items and things like that. then you've got higher interest rates, right? So if your family is growing and you need a new car or a new home, these are things that like embody the American dream for the vast majority of people. I mean, I'm 34, right? People my age are trying to buy their first home or, get a car for the first time that's, different than the one they drove in high school or something. Joe Biden's policies are putting that stuff out of reach for more and more people. And so you're then paying for it that second way. And then we're going to pay for it again when this stuff all has to be paid for in the form of higher taxes. Right now, China is salivating at the idea of us being $34 trillion in debt and what that's going to mean for our fiscal situation. Our interest on the debt alone today exceeds how much we spend on national defense. The idea that we're only paying for this level of spending in higher gas prices and groceries today is a very short-sighted way to think of things. And Joe Biden, of course, is not going to tell you the truth. So we're doing it at Bidenomics.com.
Well, so what I love about the website, and the left's been better at this for us for a very, very long time. So I'm really glad we're doing it. But like just setting it up simply as rhetoric versus reality. Your classic, I'm the digital guy, so we would call this like a myths versus facts website. Every good campaign has one for when they get on the debate stage, when their opponent starts lying about them. So it's, at Bidenomics.com here, the one thing you just mentioned it earlier is the ability to afford homes. And what Joe Biden says here, here's the quote. You got to love this. We're growing an economy from the middle out and the bottom up instead of the top down. Bidenomics is just another way of saying the American dream. And we've got like 7% mortgage rates.
Yep. If you're lucky.
So if you, if you are like a millennial or a Zoomer looking at, buying your first home or condo or apartment or whatever, I mean, you've never paid higher interest rates.
No, not in your lifetime. I mean, it was every friend likes to dunk on me and said that when Trump was in office, they got their house at 2%.
Right. Yeah. Get that locked in.
Yeah. and like you said on this website this is great, not just because, you have his lies, direct quotes. These are all direct quotes on this website, which is what I love from Joe Biden. And then right next to it, the actual data and the facts. This is also great because you can then pull this out of your pocket.
Right.
At a family gathering.
Yeah, like you're at the bar.
Yeah.
When
your aunt wants to say how great Joe Biden's doing, give me 1 second. And Bidenomics.com, how did they not buy that website to begin with? Huge mistake on their part.
That is the challenge. I've done 100 conservative grassroots events at the time being at AFP. Going out and telling people that we own Bidenomics.com is going to be a challenge in and of itself because people are not going to believe it. You've got a White House full of millennial and Gen Z TikTokers who live online, seem like they've never touched grass before, and they skip like digital 101 because they're too busy telling Joe Biden to use like DEI approved vocab talking about illegal immigration. It's amazing they didn't do this. And so we jumped on the opportunity and we're using it to fact check Joe Biden because they won't tell us the truth.
So I've got a theory about this, why they didn't secure the domain. Like, you remember when they rolled it out originally, and it was basically just like a talking point for the chattering classes, like the media, and they hadn't really convinced themselves that it was a good idea to use Bidenomics as a slogan for the broader electorate. And so they sort of backed away from it a little bit.
And like very quickly, the right was like, oh, we'll talk about Bidenomics. It's horrible. Yeah, now we have a name for this horrible thing that's happening in the country.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful. And I appreciate you guys putting it together because like Smug said, it's like, everybody talks to their neighbors. They talk to their friends. They talk to their family here over the next 8-9 months or whatever. And it's nice to have like the quick little factoids at your fingertips. Otherwise, it gets lost in the back and forth of arguing about, the headlines of the day.
I'm waiting for him to come out and attack us. It's just a matter of time until, powerful Democrats realize who they're afraid of. It was Obama. He name-checked us. If you remember Harry Reid, I'm sure Holmes remembers.
Oh, yeah.
Harry Reid almost daily was on the Senate floor disparaging us. Sheldon Whitehouse, my home state of Rhode Island, does it all the time.
He's a terrible
still.
guy.
I'm still waiting for the invite to his beach club. I'm not holding my breath. At some point, they're going to realize that we're doing this. I'm sure they've seen this already. But by then, hopefully the American people, again, understand that it's Joe Biden and the people who voted for his agenda who caused this inflation crisis that we're in. That's all we're concerned about.
And this is how we win, is because so many Americans, this is how he kind of like tricked his way into office the first time. Like, oh, this is harmless Uncle Joe. He's just a nice old guy. Right here, you go Bidenomics.com and saying this is all the problems that you're facing are directly related to policies that he spearheaded, he put in place. This is all on him. So the more people realize he's the person to hold accountable, he'll be held accountable.
And the people already understand that. If you look at any of the polling, his economic numbers are in the absolute toilet. because of all this stuff. It's like you don't really have to spin any of these facts. The facts are facts. The polls are the polls for a reason.
Yep.
Everybody's living through this economy. So I'm curious, you know, you got this great website, all the information out there. What are the other components of this campaign are you going to have going here over the next 9 months?
Absolutely. People who know AFP, they know our bread and butter. It's being out in the states. We're now, as of last year, active in all 50 states. We've got physical state chapters in 35 states. And so in key states this year, we'll be on the ground door knocking, making phone calls, doing events, running digital ads, doing real, genuine grassroots outreach like we've been doing. We're coming up on our 20th anniversary. So we have 20 years of doing this stuff. We're not new. We don't pack up the day after Election Day. So that's what we're going to be doing, is hammering home these messages with ads, with mail, with door knocks, with phone calls, obviously, you know, social media and the whole works. Because, again, we know what we're up against. You guys talk about it all the time. The mainstream media is not going to tell Americans the truth about how
Right.
Biden's agenda caused this inflation crisis. You know, if you've got a member of Congress who's parading around saying, I'm a moderate, I'm this, I'm that, and then they voted for $6 trillion in additional spending and drove this inflation crisis, you need to know that when they call themselves a moderate, they were not a moderate when it came to government spending. And that's why you're paying, you know, $70 more for groceries every week, and their grocery bill's higher than it's ever been. So we're going to be telling people the truth every which way between now and November.
Yeah.
That's terrific. And like you said, that grassroots army that AFP has is enormous. I mean, like, they carry a huge weight making sure Republicans get elected across this country and fighting this agenda.
Well, and I love it because I think you're exactly right. You have a lot of people who call themselves moderates, and we'll see all these ads here over this fall. You know how they all begin. It's like, you know, I stood up to, you know, leaders in both parties to work across the aisle for common sense solutions for blah, 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 blah. And then you look at their voting record and it's like, no, you're just as responsible as Joe Biden is for all of this.
Yep. That's exactly it.
There is a lesson here for Republicans, too, though. I think this is important, which is you sort of have this new breed of Republicans who are saying, like, oh, you know, free markets don't work anymore. We need to become big spenders, and we need to embrace government. And you've got, like, J.D. Vance applauding Lena Khan and Biden's bureaucrats and things like that. It's a relatively simple formula, is the
Right.
thing, right? People actually don't want class warfare. They don't want Washington intruding in their lives. All they want is for government to get out of the way, give themselves and their kids a chance to build the American dream. I think if Republicans get back to that this year, obviously, you know, the border's a mess. That's a super, super important issue. But on the economy, it's a relatively simple formula. We saw what worked. Tax cuts work. Deregulation works. Getting government out of the way and letting the American people innovate is something not only is great policy and grows the economy, but people like it.
And we
works.
saw it work in the Trump administration.
thing.
You know, I mean, like, we saw this actually happen, and you can't complain about the inflation if you're not opposed to the spending.
Totally.
You just can't.
It's that simple.
Well, I really appreciate you coming in. You know, thanks again for being such a loyal friend of the program.
Always.
You know, that's Bidenomics.com for our listeners. Check it out. If you've got a crazy aunt, someone you
That's
can
it.
annoy.
This is it to dunk on.
Yeah,
it's like a dunking machine. Bidenomics.com.
Just facts and information. Send them. Bidenomics.com. Akash, thanks again.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much.